Welcome back to Tabletop Titans and another episode of Titan Tactics. Today we're going to be discussing the Arks of Omen detachments, how they work, and how to make your list. In the Arks of Omen GT pack, your list design is going to be fundamentally changed. So you get one Arks of Omen detachment and you get one allied detachment. This can be in the form of patrol, a super heavy auxiliary, or in some cases, a auxiliary support detachment. Most other detachments are actually gone, so no more Vanguard, no more Outriders, all that stuff does not work in Arks of Omen. Essentially, this Arks of Omen detachment is going to be replacing all of them in a couple of different ways. So what is this Arks of Omen detachment that I'm talking about? Well, it's a flexible catch-all detachment, and for most people, what they used to have to take 2 detachments to accomplish, you're now going to be able to accomplish with just this one. In the detachment, you have to have at least one HQ slot, unless you're an Imperial Knights or Chaos Knights player. And additionally, unlike other detachments, you get to pick which of the battlefield roles is going to be your compulsory 3 slots. For this compulsory slot, you can pick any type of battlefield role other than HQ, Flyer, or Fortification. Makes sense. What this is going to let you do is it's going to, again, get around the need for extra detachments for fast attack slots, heavy support slots, what have you. So let's take a look what you get. After you've picked those 3 compulsory slots, you can then take an additional number of slots. You can take up to 3 more HQs, giving you a grand total of 4. You can take up to 9 troops, which is amazing because this is regardless of what kind of detachment you've teched into. You can have up to 3 additional elites and another 3 more elites, as long as those 3 are solely character units. For the fast attack, you can have an extra 3 slots, and the same for heavy support. The flyer slots remain at 2 for any 2K game, and you can have up to 3 fortifications. One of the cool things is you also have your Lords of War slots built into this detachment, of which you can have an additional 3. Last but not least, don't forget you can have 1 transport for every infantry squad in your army. But also don't forget, when you go to deploy your army, if your dedicated transports don't start with something inside of it, then they immediately die before the game starts. The idea behind this detachment is that it lets you lean into what is most essential or most interesting in your own list design, which I love. So there's a few pretty fun implications about the Arks of Omen detachment that I want to talk about. First of all, there's no more paying for these extra detachments. Your core detachment as well as your allied detachment all going to be free. So that's going to save you some CP there and give it, again, additional room to play with the things you're interested in playing with. The Lords of War are not going to cost extra CP. This is just included in part of it, which was an added nice bonus. And also, more Lords of War than ever are going to get chapter tactics, since before they were restricted to only getting chapter tactics if they weren't in a super heavy auxiliary detachment, which you were kind of forced to take them in. So that's an exciting addition to many armies. Now, there are a few limitations, however, to the Arks of Omen detachments. For one, we mentioned the fact that you can get extra fast attack, extra elite slots, but ultimately, the armies that were leaning into this, such as Heavy Bikes army or All Tanks armies, kind of needed more than 6 slots. So if you're playing one of those very few armies, you might actually find yourself running out of slots. And this is something that you just didn't happen before. So you can't pay for them with extra CP, and they're just gone. There's also no Supreme Command detachment, of course. So this is going to modify a couple characters, namely Abaddon, who is a Supreme Commander and an HQ. So you can still take him as an HQ, as you don't need an extra slot, but if he doesn't match the Legion of the rest of the detachment, you're going to lose all your Legion abilities. So for the foreseeable future, we're only going to be seeing Abaddon in Black Legion lists. Probably by design, but I'll be curious to see if GW has any comment or FAQs to verify this. Last of all, we have a few factions that struggle with requiring mono sub-factions. We have things like Drakari, we have things like Dark Angels. They're all going to have certain things be restricted or impossible given these new detachments. We'll talk a bit more about that in a bit. You have your core Arks of Omen detachment. You also get one allied detachment, as I mentioned, and this is determined using the new Battle Brothers rule. This is a chart essentially that determines what allies you can take based off of the keyword of your main detachment. If you're any Imperium detachment, you can get an Agents of the Imperium allied detachment in the form of a patrol or an auxiliary support detachment. Instead, you can take one Imperial Knight as a super heavy Ox detachment, as long as it's a single Knight and they are, of course, a free blade. Last and most interesting, I think, you can have one Votan patrol for your Imperium army. If you're Asuryani or Drakari, you can take one Harlequin patrol accompanying you, which is pretty cool. And if you're Astra Militarum, you can take one Militarum Tempestus patrol detachment as an ally, so you can still get all of those abilities. Genestealer Cults are going to have access to the Brood Brothers detachment, of course. This can take the form of a patrol, an auxiliary support, or a super heavy auxiliary detachment. If you're any Chaos army, you can take a singular Chaos Knight as a Dreadblade. If you're World Eaters, you can take a Chaos Demons detachment that's all Khorne. If you're Thousand Suns, you can take one that's all Tzeentch. If you're Emperor's Children, you can take one that's all Slaanesh. And of course, if you're Death Guard, you can take one that's all Nurgle. Last of all, if you're Chaos Space Marines, that is not one of these aforementioned ones, you can take a Chaos Demons detachment that is any faction and can also be mixed, which is pretty exciting. There is one exception to the cap of 2 allied detachments, and it is for the Disciples of Be'lakor Chaos Demons. They can take one Chaos Knight from House Korvax as a detachment, and they can also take one Chaos Space Marines detachment as a patrol. They do get a special exemption, as it does say in this book. So what do command points look like in the Age of the Arks of Omen? First off, you're going to start with 6 command points. This is the same as we started off with in the Nephilim detachment, but you're saving a lot of command points on not having to spend on extra patrols, extra outriders, extra vanguards, so net positive there. Sadly, we do still have to pay for our warlord traits and relics, even the first ones, and the core stratagems to grant those still exist in the book. There is a new core stratagem, which I think is pretty interesting. This is going to let you increase the limit of a certain type of unit by 1 in a detachment. This is intended for things like war bosses, where you can only take 1 per detachment, and now you can increase it to 2. And this is of course because of the fact that you only get 1 main detachment, and there's no way to take more patrols to unlock those extra slots. So there's going to be some big changes there and a lot of tech to think about. The core secondaries in the book also incentivize you to take troops, armigers, and war dogs that will give you extra command points every time you complete certain of the core stratagems. I think it's a nice bonus, and the armies that take these certain units will be very happy, but it's not necessarily something that people are going to be building around. Of course, with any new rules, there are often questions and possible FAQs, so we have a few that we're looking at here. For one, Space Marines still will lose doctrines if they take any allied detachment that's not including Agents of Imperium or unaligned. So this means if they have that Votan patrol, they're going to lose their doctrines. And vice versa, the Votan will also lose their Judgment tokens. Curious to see if GW intended this or not. There's a number of other allies that also suffer from a similar issue as this. We won't get into too much of the details, but you get the idea. Dark Angels did get a Day 1 FAQ to allow the all Deathwing and all Ravenwing detachments to unlock those abilities, such as Transhuman, etc. However, the truth is before people were taking 2 detachments to unlock 1 detachment of each of the wings, and you actually cannot do that at all now. So again, is this intentional? We're going to play it as such, but it would be really cool if you could take, let's say, an extra patrol for each of the wings to get just a bit of support from a second form. This last one I'm almost certain is a mistake. If you take an Agents of Imperium Auxiliary Support detachment, it doesn't look like they save you the 2 CP, it still costs you those 2. And so this feels like a mistake, maybe a typo, maybe a comma's missing somewhere, but let us know in the comments below what you think. Does it sound reasonable to take an Assassin or an Inquisitor for 2 command points? So overall, what are we looking at? Well, I think for most armies and most people, this is going to be more flexibility than ever. You don't have to take the tax units that you're not interested in. You can focus on what your army is all about. What most people needed 2 detachments to do, you're now going to be able to do 1, saving you more command points than ever. There are some incentives to play more troops, armigers, and war dogs than ever, but probably not enough to build your list around. And we're seeing the return of allies in a big but limited way, which I think is a very smart approach. And of course, there are some issues that need to be clarified or FAQ'd, so we're going to be waiting patiently for that, and we'll probably put out a video as soon as we get clarification. All in all, it's an exciting and new change to the game, and we're very curious to hear from you guys what you're doing with your detachments and your allies and all that good stuff. So let us know in the comments below, and if you're interested in more of this content, you can check out the videos we've been putting out here in order to learn all about Arks of Omen and the state of the game. That's going to be it for me. I'll catch you guys next time on the tabletop. Bye!